back to George on Sports with myself, your host, George Egator. And today on the show, we have Toni from the Zone London podcast and also Talk Sport. Thank you for joining the show today. And how are you? Or should I say, how are you dealing with the weather?
Oh, it's really hot right now. Normally I'm really good with the weather, but right now I'm low-key feeling it. Like I was planning on doing this shirtless, but I didn't want to do that to you all too.
I'm not far off, to be fair. Normally I've got a jersey on. But I couldn't do it today because I'm way too hot. So we're going to talk all things NFL. You're a Broncos fan, so being in the AFC West. But before that, I want to take it back slightly. You are a sports journalist, and you have your own podcast, and you have for a while. Not only that, you actually do some work for Talk Sport. Enlighten me. How did that come about? Your journey into becoming a sports journalist, hosting the podcast, and doing some amazing work that you're doing with Talk Sport.
It always started off. I was always into sports as a kid. I always liked talking about sports. And then I think one of my cousins done sports journalism at university. So I was like, I didn't know sports journalism was a thing you get into. So I went to university. I didn't do sports journalism at university. I done journalism just because I wanted to broaden my horizons. Because I was like, I like sports. I want to be a sports journalist, but let me do journalism just in case. Long story short, went to uni, got my master's, done this and that, and I was a part of a program called Beacons. Media of sport, and one of the masterclasses were at Talk Sport at the time, and then it was during the London Bridge terror attacks that happened like 2-3 years ago now. That was like one of my first or second days at Talk Sport, and we were all locked in because we couldn't leave because it literally just happened right outside our office. And long story short, one of the guys I was shadowing his job had to leave, and then they were like, "Oh, Toni, can you do this? You've been watching him for a couple of hours." And I was just like, "Yeah, I can do it." Do you know what I mean? I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
So that's literally how I got into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I was like a women's football reporter before that, and doing stuff with like blogs and stuff like that. But that was like my way into like the proper sports industry, as you say. And yeah, I've been working there coming on to 3 years now in November. So yeah,
Nice. No, it's great. Shout out to Beacons as well, because I know I see a lot of the work that they do, and they get a lot of people into some great places. So that must have been strange for you. A couple of days into a new job, you have an event like that happen. So you're obviously really excited because you're doing a kind of like a dream role, but then something like that happens. But that also gives you your pathway into the role, I guess, that you're supposedly doing now.
Yeah, literally. Like I saw it as an opportunity because I feel like, especially in the industry, networking is key, right? So with everyone being locked in, some people were like, I can say this, some people are like drinking wine and that. So I was just because they were locked in, they finished, all right? So I had nothing else to do on a Friday. So I was just like, let me just like get involved with this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like talk to everyone, always find, I know one thing my mom taught me as a child was like, always find a common ground with everyone. So I was just like speaking to all these people and they seem to like me. And if they like you, they hire you, stuff like that. You know what I mean? People like to hire. People like to hire people they can work with, people they like, people they trust. So I just use that, and my networking got me in the job, and here I am.
I had a guy on a couple of weeks ago, or in fact last month, Caleb Leach is an NFL scout for the Carolina Panthers, and he said something which sort of rang in my head when you mentioned what you said about networking, and he said your net work is your net worth, and it obviously makes a lot of sense. Like the people around you, if you're trying to get to a certain place, and naturally those people are going to be of the same breed. Let's move on to the podcast that you guys have. Tell me about the podcast and how that came about.
So it was during COVID. I was bored, and I was like, I've always as we all were during COVID, I always wanted to talk about sports. Like that's as in I work at Talk Sport, but I always wanted. I watch a lot of like Undisputed, First Take, all of that to keep up with my basketball, my NFL. So I was like, we don't have that many things that combined like all sports into sports that I like into like one platform for everyone. So I was like, I'm going to create this thing. So even because I created the Zone LDN like 2 years ago, we do stuff with like gaming, we do stuff with 2K. We about American football, talk about basketball, talk about women and men's football, just like an all in one. So there's some people that are there for the NFL, there's some people there for the basketball, but there's some people there for men's football, vice versa. And so I just created a platform and brought some of my friends along who I know want to get in the industry and like talking about sports and like talking about their specific sports. And I thought, let me use this as a platform to just build a network, build a platform, and there's so many different sports that people can talk about. So, and I've done it as well because in our office, like we have so much, it's an audio. I work at a radio station, right? So there's so much access to like audio and audio mixing. And because I learned how to do that through my job, I was like, oh, I can definitely like produce a podcast now. Okay, if I can produce a radio show, I can produce a podcast. So I started that like 2 years ago, and it's going all right.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of the work that you guys are doing, and I love it. Actually, I'm a big fan. I recently saw the 2K work that you mentioned. That was great as well. And particularly, like you mentioned, it covers a number of different sports. So again, you might not come for the football, but you might be there for the basketball, or you might be there for the gaming side. Which gaming alone is just it's going through the roof right now. So, no, big fan. I love what you're doing. American football in particular. So you're a Broncos fan, you mentioned. So in particular, my story was I basically put in Madden. For people who don't know what Madden is, it's the video game version of the NFL, American football. And the first team that came up was the Colts, and that's how I picked my team. No research, nothing about it. That's just how I picked my team. So how did you become a Broncos fan?
Similar to your story, playing Madden with my brother. So I playing Madden 04. He's older than me, so obviously he gets player 1. So he picked the Patriots, and I was like, okay, cool. I now have to hate the Patriots. And my favorite animal as a kid was growing up was a horse. So I was flicking through teams, I saw a horse, and I was like, yep, Denver Broncos. I've been fan ever since. It's been a tough ride. We had some good moments, had some bad moments, but Broncos country till I die. So I've literally been a Broncos fan because of a horse. And
to be fair though, I kind of like these scenarios where people pick teams based on things that they like, or colors they like, or random facts, as opposed to researching and looking out for their best quarterback at the time. No shame in doing that. If you want a glory hunt, that's all good, but that's not exactly how I like to do it. So on that segue, we're going to move into the NFL. The Denver Broncos in the AFC West, which without a doubt is the most stacked division in the NFL. I don't really think there's much of a debate there. We've had so many moves happen in the division, which we'll come on to soon. But if we take a look back at last season and see where the team finished in the AFC West, so we had the Chiefs with the powerhouse that is Patrick Mahomes. They finished first in the division with a 12-5 record. We had the Raiders, who I think are criminally underrated, in my personal opinion, finished second with a 10-7 record. We also had the Chargers with Justin Herbert, who narrowly missed out on the playoffs, although they definitely should have been there, with a 9-8 record, and your Broncos in fourth place with a 7-10 record. The difference this season is there have been a slew of incredible moves in the AFC West alone. And we will talk about that right now, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs, the main one being Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill was the key to pretty much everything for their offense, in my opinion, whether or not he was getting the ball, because he opened up the field. You take him out of the equation, you still have guys like Travis Kelce, and you still have guys that they've brought in at MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling from the Green Bay Packers, and they've also signed Juju Smith-Schuster from the Pittsburgh Steelers. But they aren't the same team. Defensively, they're not as stout as they could or used to be, and offensively, Tyreek Hill is enough of a change for, in my opinion, to sort of demote them down in the rankings. You look at the Raiders, another monumental shift there. You bring in the potentially number one and number two receiver in the league in Devontae Adams from the Green Bay Packers, taking it away from his guy Aaron Rodgers and sending him to his homeboy who he played college ball with in Derek Carr. Not to mention the fact that you bring over Chandler Jones from the Arizona Cardinals on the defensive line. You pair him with a guy like Max Crosby, and it's mayhem on that side of the field. The Chargers. The Chargers are a very scary team for a number of reasons. Justin Herbert being number one. Their offense speaks volumes of guys like Keenan Allen. You got Austin Eckler in the backfield as well. Not to mention their tight ends too. But you look on the defensive side of the ball, where they've signed J.C. Jackson from the Patriots, Khalil Mack from the Bears, and you pair him with Joey Bosa, a force to be reckoned with, without a doubt. And we come to you guys, the Broncos, which is where I'll let you chime in with the moves that you've made, being number one, Russell Wilson. What are your thoughts and feelings on that move?
It was a great move. When we were linked with, obviously, with Nathaniel Hackett coming in, we all thought it was going to be Aaron Rodgers. I was like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers, Super Bowl bust. But I'm very happy with Russell Wilson. I think listen, I've been screaming for ages. The Broncos have been a very good team, but you're in this NFL, you're only as good as your quarterback at the moment. And we've had, I put all my stocks in my boy Drew Lock. You know, I was busy. I put all my stocks in Drew Lock, and I was like, yeah. But even I was putting my stocks in Drew Lock, and then I realized like his ceiling is probably like a mediocre Kirk Cousins, right? And obviously, then we had Teddy B, which, you know, a check down QB, but when it comes to it, Teddy B's at levels. So getting a good quarterback now, arguably, no, definitely somewhere a top 10 quarterback, you will see the Broncos definitely make the playoffs this season. I think the playoffs is minimum, because people don't realize, maybe I'm a bit biased as a Broncos fan. Yes, we are in the AFC West, which is the most stacked division ever, but we are a very good team. We still had we still had the third best defense in the league last season. And a lot of the games we lost were one possession games down to our quarterback like not showing up at the time. We should have beat, I remember the Browns, we should have beat our second game against Kansas. I can say so many games that we lost in one possession games. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if we had a better quarterback, this problem would be solved. And now that our old coach is gone, we've got a new coach in, we've got a new offensive coordinator in. As long as we let Russ cook, we're fine. Now we've got a stack of 4 good receivers.
Yeah.
So like I've always said, all we needed was that quarterback. We've re-signed what's his name?
Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, we've signed Melvin Gordon. We've got 2 good running backs now, and I'm really thinking, you know what? We've got a run game. We've now got a good quarterback. I'm not going to say we're going to win the division, because I still think it's the Chiefs' division to lose. But
really? We'll come to that.
I still think it's the Chiefs' division to lose. But honestly, the only thing I can think of is, 1, we're going to make the playoffs this season, and 2, I think we'll finally beat the Chiefs, because I think they're like 14-0 against us at the moment. So I feel like we'll finally beat the Chiefs one game, whether it's at Arrowhead, whether it's at Mile High, but we will finally beat them. Other than that, I want to say, like, obviously the optimism of the fan in me wants to say Super Bowl bust, but the AFC is stacked. Like, it's stacked. The AFC West is stacked, but the AFC there's
itself is stacked. Yeah. So if I put you on the spot now and ask you to rank the AFC West, where would you place it? Well, rank the AFC West. I'll see where you put your team to.
Teams wise, it's
or
hard.
Predict.
So let's say if the AFC West, let's say we're in week 17, I still think the Chiefs win the AFC West. Patrick Mahomes, listen, the Chiefs' defense is ass. Couldn't talk. I've been saying the fact that they lost Honey Badger now is not a good defense. Yes, the offense has got worse, but with Patrick Mahomes, I'm sorry, that's a quarterback that can just do it all, right? So I still think they can win the division. I want to say us second because I'm a bit biased, because Russell Wilson's a better quarterback than Derek Carr. Yes, the Raiders are good. I feel like the Raiders are going to be... it's weird. I feel like every single team in the AFC West can make the playoffs.
Possible.
I want to say us second. I want to say the Raiders third.
Wow. So Chargers...
Yeah, and let me tell you about the Chargers, right? Because everyone overrates the Chargers, and I've been screaming this last year. And one of my episodes of my podcast was, we had a guy saying, "Oh, the Chargers are going to win the AFC West." I said, "Mate, they're not even going to make the playoffs, because this is what you guys." And I was right. And this is what you guys don't think about the Chargers. We play the Chargers twice a season, right? So I watch these guys more than the normal NFL fan. They're not as good as you think they are. Fair enough. Their defense is stacked, and now obviously with JC Jackson, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, stacked, right? But I'm sorry, we overrate Justin Herbert a lot.
Wow.
Now, before you get on to me, before you get on to me, overrate doesn't mean he's bad.
No, of course not.
I think he's better than what he actually is. Every time I see a quarterback rankings, I'm seeing him in top 5. He should be nowhere near that top 5. I don't even think he's top 10. Bro, how are you going to put someone who hasn't made the playoffs top 10? I think it's ridiculous. I
understand. I do understand that point.
Let's keep it 100. You can't. He's good. He's got that arm. I watched his, because the thing is, he wasn't that good at college until he had that Big Ten championship game
Yeah, but yeah, Oregon backed it. Yeah,
his stock. And obviously, being a white quarterback boosted his stock. Herbert. I do have a fear of putting my stocks in QBs from Oregon because I did it with Marcus Mariota, and I had an Oregon bucket hat and everything, and I still like Marcus Mariota. I've seen him win at Arrowhead. At least I've seen him win a playoff game. I've not seen Justin Herbert in the playoffs yet.
That's fair. It's fair.
So I can't, bro. As soon as he makes a playoff game, talent-wise, he's definitely in the top 10, and I will happily admit that. But I think it's so far-fetched that people are putting him in the top 10 when he hasn't even made the playoffs. Because really, if he's a top 10 quarterback, he should be beating Derek Carr. And I know they did that stupid ass play at the end, which took it to overtime. But really and truly, I'm sorry, if you're top 10, you should be beating Derek Carr. Like the Raiders are a good team, but they're not that good. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting. And this is why I like doing this, because I like to hear all the different perspectives. Because obviously, like you mentioned, you probably hear a lot about the Chargers and Justin Herbert being top 5, top 3. And obviously, you've come with a completely different opinion on that, which I actually have never heard. So you're the first person I've actually ever heard say that about Justin Herbert.
Especially one, yes, I do hate the Chargers, but still, like, listen, I think they're a good side, and I'm worried about going against the Chargers this season.
Yeah.
But I'm so sorry. Like, Justin Herbert's a very good quarterback. I will not deny that. But top 10, he's not top 10 yet. Like, let's just keep it 100. You can't be a top 10 quarterback and not play the playoff game yet. I think it's ridiculous. I think talent-wise, potential-wise, 100%. If I'm talking QBs under 25, who do I want to right? Of course I'll put Justin Herbert there. But no, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because of these rookie records, that don't mean nothing to me. I've seen Baker Mayfield beat rookie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So if I'm to rank or predict the AFC West, this is how I put it, and you can kind of already tell. I'm putting Chargers number 1, which see, I'm putting Chargers. I'll explain. Chargers number 1. I think they have probably the best defense, debatable, in that division. Their offense obviously speaks for itself. I would like a bit more outside of Austin Eckler because he can't do it all, but they do have the guys like Keenan Allen on the outside and I think it's Palmer Ham as well, the tight end.
And Mike Williams as well, isn't
Mike Williams, who just got a $60 million extension, which I did question, to be fair. I did question whether that was the right call, but that's where I go for the Chargers. Number 1. Number 2, this was close. It was a tie between the Raiders and the Broncos. I've gone with Raiders second. They finished second last season and they actually made the playoffs, unlike the Colts. But I've gone Raiders second. The offense, I'm not so sold on running back Jacob. I'm not massively sold on him, but
I think
Josh Jacobs. I'm not sold on him. But the rest of their offense, I mean, come on, you have to now defend. You have to now account for Darren Waller, who is a Pro Bowl tight end. You've got Hunter Renfrow, who is ridiculous in the slot. Now you've got Devontae Adams as well, and then you talk about the defense with the guys on the edge. So I'm going Raiders second based on that. I was going to put Broncos second, but I've gone Broncos third. So I've gone flip. You've gone the Chiefs first. I've gone the Chiefs last. I've gone the Broncos third because I think they need a bit. I think they're going to need a bit of time to integrate with Russell Wilson, and you've got a great defense, by the way. I just think. And I know you've got Joey Judy and Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler and Cortland Sutton and the 1-2 combo that I love in the running back, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Great guys, complement each other really, really well. It's like for like. You take one out, you're going to get the same thing with the other guy. But I just feel like you're going to need a season to get it under your belt, to get it under Russ's belt before we can really start to push the pedal to the metal. And then I've gone Chiefs last. And I tell you, the main reason for that is I cannot understand or just understand how much of a big deal Tyreek Hill is to them. I know. I hear it on podcast after podcast that he's replaceable and all this kind of stuff. They've drafted a guy, I forget his name, but he's another speedster who they're looking to sort of bring up to speed. But now you can double Travis Kelce. I mean, you couldn't afford to leave Kelce and sort of leave Tyreek because you could just go over the top or underneath to Kelce. But now you don't have that threat. It changes everything. Andy Reid is a mastermind, and he always will be. But I think Tyreek Hill is enough to cause a shift in the team. Not only that, I think they have top 3 hardest schedules in the NFL. So that's a problem. That's a big problem. But it's interesting. I'm yet to hear anybody who has had that take on the Chargers, and I'm here for it. The points you make are valid.
Everyone over it. Like, as we had this discussion, the AFC West discussion on my podcast. I think it was like week 2. I think it was it week 3 that the Chargers beat them in Arrowhead. They beat the Chiefs. Yeah. So everyone was like, Chargers are going to win the division. And I said, guys, I've seen this all before. One, the Chargers are a franchise. Two, Justin Herbert is good. Their defense, listen, they've got better. So I expect,
of course,
expect the Chargers to have a much better defense. But I feel like out of all of the offenses in the AFC West, I feel like they kind of have the worst receiving. They have the worst receiving core.
Yeah, do you know what? I agree. It's going to make me sound crazy because I want to say I agree with you.
Yeah, they have the worst receiving core, and talent-wise, I feel like they have. Let's say, see, this is what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking potential.
Yeah.
Because if I'm talking what you've shown me in the NFL, I'm sorry, when you had a shootout with Derek Carr beat you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson's the champion, Mahomes is the champion, and no one's touching Mahomes anytime soon. So really and truly, right now, by default, Justin Herbert, you're fourth. Doesn't mean you're all these lot better than you, because I feel like he will go on to have a much better career than Derek Carr. Maybe even a better career than Russell Wilson. But even still, he's got to win at least one ring.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with me saying like Justin Herbert is overrated, but I just feel like we just overrate the Chargers a lot.
It's a great take because I can't wait to see how it pans out. I mean, every season I say to myself and everybody else around me that the last season was the best season ever. And now we've had the crazy offseason that we've had. I feel like this season will also be the best season ever. It just continues to get better and better and better. But on that note, we're gonna move over to Russell Wilson as a quarterback and what he can do for you guys. So when I look at last season, he threw for just over 3,000 yards, 3,113 yards, which is his lowest since he entered the league, or since 2012. So there's one. He rushed for 153 yards, which is his lowest ever on record. You can see a pattern developing here slightly. He threw for 25 touchdowns, which is his third lowest on record. He's gained a little bit of weight. Now, this is subjective. People love to talk about this when players move teams. I don't know if you've seen, but there's a lot of talk about Leonard Fournette being a bit overweight at the moment. Russell Wilson's been doing a tour in the UK and he's been all around the place, and people are noticing that he's putting some weight. But to be fair, these guys are athletes. I'm sure they know what they're doing. They've got nutritionists and chefs on standby. They'll be able to sort that out. Now he's on the new team, being the Denver Broncos, and you can see how happy he is about it. He hasn't stopped saying Broncos orange, let's ride, and everyone's been trashing him for it, including me. I couldn't it was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. But the last quarterback to switch over to the Denver Broncos and win it all was my ex-quarterback, Peyton Manning. You know, Hall of Fame, gold jacket, everything. We know what he's about. So my question to you is, given what I've said, and clearly last season was not a typical season for the Seattle Seahawks. You know, Legion of Boom was long gone. They did have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Chris Carson, the running back, can never stay healthy. I think he's probably due to retire due to a neck injury. They left with Rashard Penny, he's not a bad running back, but it didn't work for them. The O-line wasn't great, and clearly Russ won it out. Rushed himself back from his finger injury, which is never a good thing, because if you're a quarterback, you know, you are the soul of the team and you need to be the one leading the charge. So my question to you is, does Russ still have it?
Yeah, I think he does. I feel like I've had this question done to me before. I feel like we forget what Russell will say, especially last season as well. In my defense, listen, Seattle were not Seattle or Legion Boom, right? And Pete Carroll's kind of the devil in the sense that he limits Russ. He doesn't like Russ running out of the pocket. And when we see Russ at his best, it's him scrambling, running out of the pocket, filing Tyler Lockett for down the end zone and finding him a massive, accurate ball. And that is where I really want, because apparently I saw a report saying that we're going to let Russ lead our offense in a sense, because people was like, you know what, okay, run first, blah, 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 blah. Defense first, Russ, you just do what I say. And the playbook, even though even though you learned this playbook, it didn't fit to Russ's needs, right? And it didn't fit to Russ's strengths. We all know Russ can extend plays. He's a good thrower of the ball. And listen, last season for Seattle Seahawks, it was a poor season, right? Especially half the time, I didn't even think Russ wanted to be there. And apparently people were saying that he mentally checked out. So that's why when I'm looking at his stats, I don't really take in last season. I'm thinking of seasons before because the NFC West, again, is a very good division. I feel like there's the AFC West and the NFC West as well. And I've seen Russ go toe-to-toe with Arizona, go toe-to-toe with the Rams, go toe-to-toe with the 49ers as well. So if we let Russ cook, especially with the receiving core we have, because Cortland Sutton is, I think, is our number one season. He's going to have a breakout season this year.
Okay.
One-on-ones, if you put Cortland Sutton in single coverage, it's a wrap, right? KJ Hamler as well, I feel like, is very good in the slot because he's rapid and he's going to have that. If he goes on a deep route, I think there was one time, who did we play? It was Drew Lock, so a bad example, but we played, I think we were away to Carolina, and KJ Hamler done a double move in the slot all the way down. Drew Lock found him, and I was thinking, I've seen this route so many times in the sense that if we actually have a good quarterback, this could be easy money. Jerry Jeudy again we're gonna see a different side to Jerry Jeudy because I think he's a ridiculous route runner, but we just didn't see it enough with Teddy, and we didn't see it enough under Drew Lock.
Yeah,
and also Timmy P. Timmy doesn't drop the ball. Like worst comes to worst, and he's big as well. So like we've got 4 good receivers right there that Russ can throw to. Russ really had Tyler Lockett,
DK,
Metcalf,
Gerald Everett, tight end.
Do you know what I mean?
That's about it.
That's about it, right? At least right now, he's got 4 good receivers. We're not even talking about Albert O. Yes, we lost Noah Fant, and I'm kind of sad about that because I really like him. But Albert O as well is not bad. He really kind of, he was Noah Fant, and Noah Fant, I'm kind of upset. But if someone had to tell me how to get rid of Noah Fant to get a really good quarterback, sorry, bro. But Albert O is not a bad tight end. So in that sense, we've actually got like a stacked offense for the first time with a good quarterback. So I'm really looking forward to seeing. Russ isn't going to have them numbers there because as long as we let him cook, we let him. I'm not saying every time he has to extend plays, and especially look, he gets sacked like crazy, right? I mean, he's been his sack record's ridiculous, and especially with the division games we have with Max Crosby and Khalil Mack.
Boy, it's I cannot wait to see any time these guys play each other.
This is the thing. With the AFC West, I really feel like all our divisional games, I feel like we could lose all of them, or we could win a lot of them.
Literally, it's the hottest division in the league. But you mentioned Albert O. I think he's very underrated. But a lot of this comes down to who your quarterback is, and you mentioned it. We've seen it with many players before who, they've had the subpar quarterback. They get the right guy, or they move themselves, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, we see the real player. And you're right, you do have great wide receivers. KJ Hamler is amazing in the slot, and you've got the 2 big-bodied guys plus your tight end. And then you've got, you have it all. You have the 1-2 combo in Javonte and Melvin. A lot of teams can't boast wide receivers, running back, 2 of them, and a star quarterback. And then you talk about your great defense with guys like Surtain the second or third. He's, lights out, absolutely lights out. So having said all of that, how far do you think the Broncos can actually go? Now, before you do answer, I will just remind you, this is the Broncos' 5th season with a losing record. And obviously now under new management with Nathaniel Hackett coming from the Packers, and he was so excited to be able to bring in Russell Wilson. I watched his press conference and he was over the moon. He hardly said anything aside from it's Russell Wilson. Like what else can you say? And I don't know if you've seen it, but late last night, UK time, early US time, Russell actually released a video, short 10-second clip of him putting his helmet on and throwing the ball downfield, and the camera pans down to his cleats where it's written the 4th Super Bowl for the Broncos. So that is exactly what he's chasing. The previous one was obviously by Peyton Manning. So how far do you think the Broncos can actually go?
If we stay healthy, and a massive if because we never stay healthy. I don't think we will go all the way.
Okay.
But I feel like there's a chance. And the reason I feel like there's a chance is because I've seen this Broncos team go up against contenders and be in it with a crap quarterback. And our defense has our defense will hold us into games, right? Our defense has held us up so many times. And we've now got that same defense with obviously Von Miller's gone, but Von Miller didn't have that much of an impact. Like, the first 3 games, against the Jets, Jaguars, things, I get that. But now Von Miller, the Bills. If we got Randy Gregory, obviously, I like to call
still got Chubb.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I like to call him no-fly zone 2.0. I think we can go all the way. If everyone stays healthy, obviously there has to be situations. I don't think we're the best team in the AFC. I still feel like the Bills will be a tough team. But I don't see why we can't go all the way. If I'm looking at what I know from what I watch week in, week out with the Denver Broncos, and I'm like, you know what? when I actually just look at this team, we are not a bad team. We're actually just a quarterback away from really contending. And now we've got that quarterback in Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's good enough to get you to a Super Bowl, right? Maybe not in this day and age, but we've seen that Russell Wilson, he's done it before and with a good team. And now we've surrounded him with a good team. So I honestly don't see why we can't go all the way. Obviously, easier said than done. And we've got the most. I don't even think we'll win our division. But then I'm actually looking at it and I'm thinking, all right, we had the third best defense in the league. Maybe because our defense was on a lot because we had a lot of 3 and outs.
Yeah.
Our defense shows up at times. And now we've kind of added to that defense. We've now added to our offense. I don't see why we can't go all the way. I don't think we will. I'm not going to be out and getting tattooed and say, like, 2022 Super Bowl champions. But, like, cheeky, I think we were like 50-1. And I was thinking,
okay,
stick a cheeky tenner on that. Do you know what I mean? Just because looking at it on paper, it should go, oh, that's if we're healthy. And I don't think we'll say healthy. But if we're healthy, I don't see why not.
It's the NFL and injuries. Look at the Ravens last season, injury after injury after injury. And that's one thing I think people are forgetting a lot. Yes, Sonny Lamar hasn't signed his new contract, and there's all talk about that. But the Ravens were banged up massively, and they still did everything that they did do. Okay, so you think you can potentially get all the way? I mean, I don't think you're necessarily wrong when you look at it on paper and you look at your offense, you look at your defense, you look at your depth chart on the wide receivers, the running backs, the tight ends, and your defense, and your quarterback, who is now Russell Wilson. Teddy Bridgewater is now with Miami, and Drew Lock has obviously gone over to the Seattle Seahawks. There's no reason technically why you can't necessarily make it all the way, aside from the fact that you are in a division with monsters, with powerhouse quarterbacks, powerhouse teams. And on the segue of talking about powerhouses, are there any is there a dark horse team that you have highlighted based on what you've seen last season or the season before that you think will probably do better than expected? I have one, but I'll let you go first.
Mine is actually, you're going to like mine. Mine is the Colts.
Come on.
The only reason mine is the Colts is because you finally got rid of that bum of a quarterback. And besides that, you were a good team. The Colts were a good team. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor, ridiculous. He basically, we had our Talk Sports Fantasy, and Darren Bent drafted him. He won it at the end. But
nice.
Only because he drafted Jonathan Taylor, right?
So that's what he does. He wins it for you.
He's one of the people that just wins it for you. The Colts have always been a decent team. I've always liked the Colts. You've always had a good defense. I'm just thinking now you've got a quarterback, you will do better than expected. I'm not sure how far you'll get. Maybe a wild card, maybe, but I feel like because there's the 7 teams. I think better than you, but if one team to be a surprise, I think it's the Colts.
I think for us being the Colts, where we fall down is our wide receiver unit. All right, I'll say this, and I've said it on the previous episodes. Yeah, but that's not enough. It's not enough. So we have the best running back room in the NFL, and I'll say it because we have Tyson Williams from the Ravens, who people are sleeping on so much because he was injured. Philip Lindsay, who we took from you guys, Texans, and then Broncos, Texans. I can't remember which way around it was. And we know what Broncos, Texans, 1,000-yard rusher. We know what he can do. And then we haven't even spoken about Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor. So I don't even need to worry about our running back room. I have no concerns whatsoever. Matt Ryan, I'd say I'd like to have him for max 2 years. I don't want him for any longer than that because he's not the long-term solution. I always say if I wasn't a Colts fan, I'd be a Falcons fan. I was obsessed with Julio Jones, obsessed with Devontae Freeman, Tony Gonzalez, all of those guys. Hooper, I was a massive fan. So if not the Colts, it would be the Falcons. But I'm happy with what Matt Ryan is. He's accurate, efficient. He doesn't throw away games, and he makes sensible plays. He's in a sense, he's almost like a quarterback and coach in a sense that he can do both roles. Defense, I don't need to complain. Now we've added Stephen Gilmore, who some people are of the opinion that he can't do it anymore. I just think he needed the right people around him. Exactly, he can still do it. Then we've got Yannick Ngakoue, who is top 3 in NFL pressures in back-to-back seasons. You pair him with Kwity Paye, who we drafted, Darius Leonard, Buckner. Offensive line is top 3 in the NFL. So I'm not too concerned. So when you say that, the more I talk it up, the more I feel like there is no way we can flame out like we did at the end of last season, where all we needed to do was win against the Raiders or the Jags. And that Jags game, I will never live it down. I will never live it down. The Jags, we have, I think it's 6 years now or something like that, away from home. Whenever we play at the Jags, we never win. We never win. And that started when the Colts came to the UK, and I was waiting for so long. I went to watch them in the UK against none other than the Jags. We were leading up at halftime with Andrew Luck, only to lose the game. And from that game onwards, we've always lost to the Jags away from home.
Is this Blake Bortles Jags?
Oh, yeah, it was. It actually was. And that's what makes it even worse. That is what makes it even worse. So to go to Jacksonville and lose that, as soon as that game kicked off, I could just tell the energy was wrong. And I just knew what would happen. And Trevor Lawrence decided he wanted to play. But I agree with you. Colts are definitely a sleeper team. But my team that I'm going to pick is the Lions. We mentioned off air earlier. And the reason I say that is because Dan Campbell, I love everything that he's bringing and brought to the team. There was a lot of talk about people weren't so happy with his aggression. He was like, we're gonna bite guys and all this kind of stuff, just a way to try and bring out the best in his team. But the way they finished the season, and like you said with the Broncos, a lot of the games that the Lions lost were very close games, field goal games, 1-point games, silly decisions that they made as well. But you look at their squad, Jared Goff isn't the be all and end all. But he did get to the Super Bowl with the LA Rams, so it's not the worst thing ever. Had a good offseason, in my opinion. They've traded for DJ Chark from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I personally liked. There was talk of him coming to the Colts, and that didn't happen. Amon St. Ra, again, another wide receiver. Khalif Raymond, who showed up big time towards the end of the season. And they actually drafted Jameson Williams from Alabama, who I think is a stud wide receiver. He's someone that I'll be looking to draft in the coming fantasy leagues. Then you look at their running back room, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, and Craig Reynolds, who's another sleeper of mine. Defensively, they're not great, but they do have some names, and they have shown. I think it was a game against the Ravens where they beat the Ravens. I think it was the last time. Yeah, I think it was Amon St. Ra or Khalif Raymond where they scored a touchdown at the end of the game. So they would be my sleeper team, my dark horse team for the upcoming season. And Tony, one last thing that I asked all my guests is towards the end of our show, before we wrap up. What does a typical day look like for you as a sports journalist, be it with Talk Sport or the podcast? What does it look like for you?
Oh, gosh. Well, Talk Sport, because there's so many different shows and all shows work differently. So let's say a typical day could be on a weekend, I'm up at like 3:30 in the morning.
Wow.
In at 5 because we do the breakfast show. We would probably had a meeting about the show on a Friday before, planned it, written the script, saying we're going to talk about football and have to look about what are we going to talk about, where's this audio, write down a whole script for our presenters. So I'm in at 5 a.m. And yeah, we do the show at 6 till 9. And then if I'm working on another show, I'll do that show later on, or I'll have lunch, stuff like that. But it's a lot of prep. I think, especially with TalkSport, it's more when you get there to the office and into this control room, that's like where you just got to breeze through it and make sure everything's on point. But a lot of it is the prep. So like for instance, now I know we've got a show on Thursday. I'm gonna have to start thinking about it now. Let's start thinking about it tomorrow. Have a meeting tomorrow. I'll come with ideas and what we're going to talk about. And especially during the summer right now, it's there's not a lot of football. It's all transfers. There's other sports. Yeah. I never thought I'd have to be talking about golf, cricket. Like the other day, I was on Times Radio and I was like talking about golf and cricket and tennis. Not tennis. It was golf, cricket. I was like, sports I don't mind watching, but I have my three loves of football, American.
Of course.
I can talk about all the time, but I don't talk about these on my podcast, right? So, so I think a typical day of work-wise, like, is just always being aware of sports. It's like, it's funny. I get, as much as I love sports, when I get home, I don't want to talk about sports.
Yeah, of course.
Today, and I'm just like, I don't want to talk. Oh, what's going on in this? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about sports. But podcast-wise, exactly the same. I normally record like my podcast on days that I've done work, so my mind is still
stimulated.
And what I like on my podcast, I like to have fun with it, because at the end of the day, if I wasn't having fun, I wouldn't do it. So
that's right.
I'll do it. I'll record it. We record it in our building at News UK, and it's just talking ball with the guys, and that's what I love.
That's the reason why I asked that question, because I figured you would say prep being one of the key things. Because I spoke to Cameron Hogwood, Sky Sports digital journalist, who you obviously know very well, and he mentioned some of the same things, prep being one of the key things. And I asked him a question where, if you know you've got breaking news due to happen, or if there's a big transfer coming, or if there's a big segment you need to put together, do you often find yourself on standby waiting for that piece to drop so you can sort of act on it fast and get the write-up ready, or how does that sort of work?
It depends. With certain breaking news breaks, and certain breaking news has an embargo, right? So we will kind of get it first, and then we're like, okay, we can't say anything until 10 o'clock, and then by 10 o'clock, let's say it's all ready, and then we just post it, right? But some breaking news is one of the worst things in live sport, because it's horrible, and I've been through it. Like, especially, for instance, when someone dies, right? So when someone dies, sometimes it depends. Sometimes it drops later. We'll be informed, and like, okay, they're gonna post it on this time. But sometimes it just drops, and then you're thinking, oh, snap. I've just like, prime example, when Jack Charlton died, maybe a year ago, I was working the show. We literally just planned the show, got on air 5 minutes, boom, Leeds have just announced Jack Charlton's died.
Wow.
So now we have to base our show around Jack Charlton and his death and pay tribute to him. So we had to scrap everything, and we're doing this whilst we're still on air. And then I'm running around calling people that have played with Jack or teammates of Jack. And so I'm so frantic. I'm like, hi, this is Tony from Talk Sport. Can you come on? Jack Charlton's just died. And I remember I got someone on, and I told him about the news, and I broke the news to him.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, I didn't know. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, it's things like that you don't realize.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I felt like I couldn't get you on, because I just broke news that someone has died, and then radio and talk about it. So it's like, that's why I said with breaking news, it's a bit difficult in a sense that there's some breaking news you can't prepare for. There's some you can, when the embargoes, transfers like that, you can prepare for.
Yeah.
And especially in like radio or TV, there's some breaking news you just can't prepare for, and you've just got to, as you said, your network is helpful. Because I'll just have to go through my phone book and be like, okay, you played with this guy, let me quickly, do you know what I mean? So you're always on your toes. You always got to prep.
I think that's a good way to put it. And I'm glad I asked you, because I think a lot of people don't see that side of these particular roles. I mean, they see the finished product, same way they'll see a finished product of a podcast or write-up, but they don't actually know what goes in behind it. But that pretty much brings us to the end of the episode. Really appreciate you coming on, Tony. I love speaking anything NFL, anything football, because I like to hear what other people think. In particular, when they put Chargers at the bottom of the the AFC West, and they crown Kansas City.
Chargers blow up again. I just can't wait to tell you I told you so. No, I'm joking.
Everybody watching, thank you for tuning in. As we ramp up towards the NFL season, we'll have plenty more content and more episodes coming out soon. Tony, where can they find you in your work?
You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at ToniAfoke, or you follow all the podcasts and stuff I do at The Zone LVN on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube.
Thank you once again, Tony, for coming on. I'm your host, Georgeonsports, and this has been Georgeonsports. Until next time.